Welcome to our Talent Talk series, where we bring you all things talent related, not only from our perspective as a specialized recruiting and HR consulting firm, but also the perspective of thousands of business leaders and candidates we speak with each year. We all have talent challenges, whether you're a startup or a Fortune 500. I'm Mandy Rosmondo, Corporate Vice President of Landrum Talent Solutions, and joining me today is Melissa Haid, our Vice President of Delivery, and Melissa Leland, the Managing Owner of Cordillera Consulting. She partners with clients on human capital solutions and leading change efforts. Melissa also teaches graduate students about organizational performance, data, and measurement. Today, we will explore what effective change management really looks like and how HR and business leaders can create alignment, buy-in, and resilience in times of transition. So thank you for joining us today, Melissa. Let's jump in and get started. Throughout your experience, what are the most common principles of change that get underestimated or overlooked?
Oh, great question. There's a few that come to mind. One is readiness. I see a lot of instances of just because we need to doesn't mean we can. And really assessing the readiness from whether it's resources or whatever that might be. Another one is thinking about the skill component of change, that change doesn't happen just because we say it needs to or people need to shift, but there's often underlying skills that need to be developed in order to adopt the change. And then the third one is that trust is a change, or change is a trust exercise. And with any change, you're either going to strengthen or weaken trust, and keeping in mind which direction each action or missed opportunity, the impact to trust there.
Yeah, and I think trust is what we hear most often from business leaders and candidates, right, within their organizations, how important that trait is.
And I think, Melissa, like building trust, right? Like on that piece, like what are some of your recommendations for that as far as getting the buy-in for the change?
Yeah, that's a great point on how do we do. One thing I hear is people talk about prior changes and their culture and all that, and they almost treat it as a separate event, but embedding that change, that added trust that you would like to achieve while doing change and through change that you become by doing. And ways that you can do that, a few things I like to do. One is front load as many reliable expectations that are known as possible. For example, with compensation analysis or doing job architecture, with this work, no jobs are going to be reduced or no pay is going to be reduced, for example, because otherwise people bring their stuff with them, previous experiences, assumptions, fears, those things. And also the important element of education, educating your stakeholders. This is the approach we took to come up with the end result, kind of like the formula or the logic and how to use it. Education is a huge way to build trust. There's some great research with that correlation to people's perception of pay and retention and the differentiator that education can provide. And then also making sure that your communications reach your audience. I heard a really interesting statistic a few months ago that 85% of our communications, this is a global study, are written and in English. And that's actually only 4% of communication is received that way.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
But how often do we treat the email or the whatever, the letter, whatever, as change? So those are the three themes that come to mind.
Yeah, definitely. And what are some of, like, how is change management evolving?
Yeah,
it's changed so much. It's really become much more sophisticated, and it's I think we're now finally to the place it's an accepted body of knowledge. And that's really exciting. It also comes with greater expectations. So I see a lot of, and I've experienced a lot of circumstances where the change management leader is also an advisor to the sponsor or to other leaders, and they really lean on them for even leadership behaviors. And The second one would be there's a greater expectation from employees for transparency and
Yeah.
meeting your stakeholders where they're at and what is their need, and influencing project team, project sponsors of the reality of that and the impact of if we're not transparent. And then I think we can't get through any conversation without mentioning AI.
Yeah.
AI is a fantastic resource for efficiencies and ideas, and it won't consider your culture, your unique culture and
Mhm.
history and context. So just plugging things in and it spits out a deck or a communication plan. You can't just take that and run.
Mhm.
That culture is and how things get done in an organization is something that is still very people dependent.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for putting the emphasis on the people part when it comes to AI too. I think that's so important in a lot of the conversations that are happening today around AI. So, and then you talked about transparency too. And, we have seen a lot of changes go awry because organizations forget to share the purpose or the why for the change. So, what's the importance of providing the clarity around the change, and how do you recommend sharing the why?
This is a really important one because I think when we stop at just the why, it falls short. And collectively, I think organizations and leaders have gotten good about sharing the foundational why. But there's some added elements to the why is why now?
Mm.
What is the value the value that we can expect to gain? And also the risks of if we don't do it now.
Mhm.
And because in stakeholders' minds, we're thinking about competing resources, scarcity of why are we doing this when we haven't done this, or when this really needs to be taken care of. And so sharing the why now is really important. And also what is the expected future state? What is this going to look like so people can start having an aligned vision around the outcome, and it's not seen transactional.
Mhm.
And along with the transparency, with the why, all that is calling out the elephants in the room. We know that there are other priorities. We know that we may
Yeah.
not agree that this has to be done or that we want to be doing it, but it's legislation or it puts us in a better, positions us better, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
What that does is your stakeholders feel understood
Yeah.
and their positions feel understood.
Yeah.
Think
Yeah,
that's
those are great points.
so important. And then if you are a leader preparing for a major transition within an organization, what are the top 3 to 5 things that leaders can do just to ensure that the change is as smooth as possible? I think it's great that you brought up transparency and some of those key areas. But any other thoughts on that?
Um, really understanding your stakeholders, anyone who will be impacted by being involved in the project work itself or as a result of the implementation is a stakeholder. And
Mhm.
so really thinking about impact and what we want their impact journey, so to speak, to be. What kind of experiences do we want to create, and being really intentional and thoughtful. And the greatest way to do that is go to them and not make guesses. And that includes communication methodologies and what is their role going to be in the change, what's going to be different. So understanding audiences that are impacted and how is really
Mhm.
important.
Mhm.
Like change is the only constant, right? But it's the
Right.
number one thing that humans do not like. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just as a species, I think some embrace it a little bit more than others, but
Mhm.
certainly it's challenging right now because there has been so much change. So,
Mhm.
um, after, what are some of the things that you do to measure if a transition was successful because you did uh, have a strong change management process in place?
Yeah. First, I guess foundationally, and then where it really matters is that future state that you've defined, did we achieve it? That is the ultimate measure of a change success. Did we get to where we aimed to be? And then also metrics can play a big part. It's good to have a mix of qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative could be what percentage of our users are access the system, for example. A qualitative can be a survey around the sentiment of how well they are feeling prepared for the change or understand the purpose for the change. So having some of that blend of metrics can be really helpful as well. So you're considering it from a more comprehensive lens. And then also, whatever your organizational drivers are, whether it's values, guiding principles, philosophy, a mission, are we staying in alignment with that? Are we staying true to that? So this is not contradicting strategic plan. It's not contradicting our mission, but that we are working in sync with those things that we say are important to us, going back to the culture component.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing your knowledge and expertise around change management with us and the things to call out that are so important when an organization is going through change, which it is constant right now, right? The trust, the transparency, alignment, and culture. All of those have to play nicely together in order to do it effectively. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. And Melissa, thank you for, I'm the Melissa team today.
Yeah.
Thank you both for the conversation. If you're interested in connecting with any of us, you can easily find us on LinkedIn, and we will see you on our next Talent Talks edition.